All right. Welcome back to the show. If you are joining us on YouTube today, thank you for sticking around. We are explaining everything when it comes to Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. This is episode 3. So if you are just with us right now, if you're listening on the radio, we love that. If you want to get caught up in podcast form or on YouTube, check out episodes 1 and episodes 2, where we'll lay out everything from the second that Wayfarer Studios bought the film, what the book was about, all the way to the red carpet to where we are now today with a formal complaint. So we left off with yesterday with Mike. Mike, you were explaining to us how things were not looking good for Blake in the press.
Yeah, it was not. And we saw a social media shift where all of a sudden people were really kind of going after her and saying, hey, this isn't a good look. You're promoting things you probably shouldn't be promoting while also working on a movie about domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. It didn't look good. And we didn't really hear much after that original release all the way until December. When I say we didn't hear much as far as either of them saying anything. He did a couple of interviews, including one with our show about domestic violence, domestic assault, survivorship, et cetera, not as much about the movie. But we heard a lot about her. We continued to in the press all the way until December 21st of 2024.
And a big part of why everyone kind of let this die is because the movie did so dang well.
Yeah. $350 million, I think, at the time of her original complaint filing.
And so I know that seems trivial, but like people don't turn stones over if the movie does well. Now, if the movie doesn't do well, you go, oh, what happened? Was there this or that, you know?
Right.
But when something does well, usually go, well, however it was made, we're fine with it because dollars were made.
Look at all this money was sitting on.
Right? Yes.
Right. So fast forward then to December 21st, an official complaint. Now, this was filed with the California Civil Rights by Blake Lively against Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, who's the president of Wayfarer Studios, Steve Sarowitz. These are all names that you're going to hear soon. So that's why I'm actually naming them out. A co-founder of Wayfarer Studios, and then several others who are all involved in PR. This complaint that was filed with the California Civil Rights Department is kind of a precursor to a lawsuit. So basically, hey, this happened to me at work. I'm going to file this complaint because that's why you would do it in California, because that's where a lot of the movies are made and edited. This is what happened. And then usually you followed up with a lawsuit. So that's kind of why that wording's a little interesting. She filed for this complaint against 10 different damage claims. The big ones being sexual harassment, retaliation, breach of contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and more.
It's a lot.
Everyone went, holy what? Like, do you guys remember reading this in the newspapers and going, what did she just say?
I remember because not only did I read it, I was on a text with you two and we all went, agah.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I'm in the car. Me and Kendall are screaming at each other at the same time, trying to communicate shock
and awe over this. Yeah, it was wild. So this news breaks. Now, I want to be clear. There are so many articles that will go over the basics of this. I went through the entire claim. I'm now a lawyer. I'm just kidding. But because I really wanted to make sure that we got this right for all of you guys and could lay this out specifically. Here's what the harassment claims, where it really, really starts out with her. She talks about a couple of very specific things. A lack of an intimacy coordinator. In this claim, she says there was not one present on all the scenes where there'd be where there was reworking. So she would agree to things as an actress going into a scene. And then she claimed Justin Baldoni would add extra kissing or nipping at her lip or some brushing of her skin that she just wasn't comfortable with. And there was an intimacy coordinator. She also talks specifically about one thing that will come up later in a different episode, but it's a slow dancing scene where she says Justin Baldoni was talking to her and not in the character of Ryle, where she was in the character of Lily, but as himself. And it made her very uncomfortable.
Blurred lines.
And when she confronted him about this, he says, listen, I'm not even attracted to you. That is what is alleged in the suit. She also brings up a birth scene. And if you've seen the movie, you know Lily gives birth at the end of the movie. She said Justin Baldoni claimed he wanted her to be fully nude. Please keep in mind, he's not only her co-star, but director and producer.
He's her boss. And
so he is the boss. He wanted her to be fully nude since, quote, no one wears a hospital gown when giving birth. which is, by the way, hella weird because I'm pretty sure I did.
I'm trying to remember, but like it wouldn't take us out of the scene.
Right.
If I saw her in something.
I think if I saw her naked, I'd be more like, whoa, why is she naked?
Yeah, like that would be crazy.
Okay. So she also claims that he did not close the set, which in a birth scene where there's very little covering up her nether regions, you would expect.
And you also have to be super vulnerable, like act like you're having a child. Like, that's not something I want everyone to be watching me do.
And on their iPads and whatever everything else. And that he hired a friend of his as the doctor, which to us doesn't sound that weird, but she explains in this lawsuit, normally a local actor would have been given that role because it's really small. And she said, I felt very uncomfortable because it felt like a friend of his was getting really close up to and very vulnerable, intimate parts of my body. She said she was not given clothes to wear in between takes because she was just in sort of a hospital gown, which if you've worn one, you know.
Yeah.
Everything in the nether regions is open.
Yeah.
And that she said this is when a president of Wayfarer Studios, Jamie Heath, showed her a nude video of his wife giving birth. Blake alleges that when she saw the video, she immediately thought it was pornography. And when he explained, no, it's my wife giving birth, she said, I'm not comfortable with this, and I don't think your wife would be either. So that's the birth scene.
It also if we take a step back from inappropriateness, it's also like, excuse me, I just had a child.
4 kids.
I got 4 kids. I've done this 4 times.
Thank you.
And I think that is where you go, you guys are like, I don't like talking down to me, but you're showing me a video of somebody else who just did the things I've done.
Right. Like, why are you mansplaining birth to me?
Yeah. That would irk me.
So much. So another one that she really points out, pornography is alleged in the suit. She says that when Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath would talk about how they both had previous pornography addictions and told the cast that she had never watched porn. Once when they brought it up in front of her, she'd been like, I just don't watch porn, hoping that it would shut the conversation down. Then it got brought up in front of the whole cast. Like, oh, well, Blake's never watched porn. And she said that was very uncomfortable. Like, people don't need to know about my intimate sex life or like what I do or do not watch. She said Justin Baldoni made a comment in front of her driver once that, he wasn't sure if he had always stopped when women had told him to stop. He said, I don't know if I've always been the better guy when it comes to sex and intimacy. And when he got out of the car, the driver made a point to look and turn around at Blake Lively and go, I don't want you alone with him ever again. I had never read that until I read this lawsuit. And I'm like, that would be very uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable. And I think I just have this like little example. I was talking to, I was having dinner with my friend and her parents, and we were talking about how we hate when we get into an elevator and a man comes in and her dad goes, I'm so confused. The not knowing that experience and not knowing that, hey, I get it, Justin, like you are, I'm saying woke, like you're woke.
Justin Baldoni, right.
But you're also a man who could
large
overpower me at any second. And you're saying these things. And I go, that's when you go, you unfortunately have a privilege of not having the experience of being the less dominant sex. I know that's
100%. And I think that goes into, like, for a little context, there's a scene in the movie where Lily tells Ryle to stop. And he doesn't stop. And I'm guessing that these conversations, because it doesn't specifically say that, but that's why these conversations arose. Also, weight and sexual harassment. These are a couple of different claims that we have heard about. She claimed that Justin Baldoni would make comments on clothing that she would wear or other cast members that he would say, like, oh, you look hot in that, or like, oh, you look sexy. One time she said to him, it's not my goal to look sexy. And he goes, okay, sorry, hot. And she went, that's not my goal either. And he went, all right, I think I've got like an HR meeting I got to go to, and left. She said,
and keep in mind, these are not equals. This would be your boss talking to you.
This would be your boss. She said that both he and Jamie Heath, the president of Wayfarer Studios, separately would enter different times, different situations, would enter her trailer while she was either breastfeeding or taking body makeup off. And she'd say, like, okay, I guess turn around, but uncomfortable. And that's when she also brings up, she believes that he'd asked her trainer to help her lose weight in, quote, 2 weeks when she wasn't bouncing back from having the baby very quickly. And when he thought she had strep throat, Blake Lively did, and had expressed this to Justin Baldoni, he had sent her a specialist some information. She later found out that this person was a weight loss specialist. One odd claim that we really have never figured out. She says that Justin Baldoni would constantly asked her about her religious beliefs, was really into saging the set all the time, and said that he could speak to her dead father because of his religious beliefs. All that is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you're what, like halfway through this, and we're already going, I'm sorry, what the hell? And again,
Right.
maybe these are acceptable if you're on equal footing with somebody. Maybe that's like a, and I always just use you and I, Kendall, as an example,
Right.
just because it seems less threatening and we both, whatever.
Right.
Maybe that's less threatening with whatever, but like have our boss come in and say, you look sexy. Have Amy come in and say you look sexy. It's a different vibe.
It's a totally different vibe. And she, with all of this, and the reason that this complaint was with the California Civil Rights Department, because it had to do with work. She was in a workplace.
Yeah.
So she says that Wayfair Studios were not protecting her. There was no HR practices. There was no handbook, etc. So to the point where she's like, I don't know who to complain to because these two are my bosses.
Yeah.
That she went to Sony. Because Sony did not produce the film, but they were the distributor of the film. So she was like, "Can you help me with this?" And they said, "No, I'm sorry. You gotta bring this up to Wayfair." This happened all the way in May of 2023.
Yeah.
So like this has clearly been going on for a while. Yeah, basically all the harassment claims that she laid out in the original criminal complaint, the original civil complaint. So she goes on to talk about the marketing. Right before we get to that, though, in the actual run of show, I want to remind you, we just did the hey, Sony goes, hey, I can't help you. It's May 2023. You got to take this up with Wayfair. So if you do remember, there was, I don't know, the strikes that nobody could act or nobody could write, right? So the movie stops filming. They wrap things up. And in November, the teams meet up and they go, okay, she and her team say, I have these... We gotta talk. There are certain onset behaviors that need to stop, or I can't do this anymore.
Is this what you're talking about, like the list of conditions?
Yeah. So, even before then, this is in November. And they're like, okay, sure, yep, we agree. We will have an all hands on deck meeting to make sure that you are happy because we have sunk millions of dollars into this, and we will make sure we're good. Great. So they sit down and have this meeting in January of 2024, right before filming starts, and she lists 30 different demands for her to return to work. And it basically lays out all the things she lays out in her sexual harassment claims. So no nude videos and images of women, no talking about porn addiction, no sexual conquests, no
dead father
about cast
things.
and crew genitalia, weight, dead father, nothing outside of pre-approved scripts, like stuff that you go, well, duh.
Yeah.
So she lays out these 30 things, this complaint.
30.
Basically, what we have in writing too, so this is all in this complaint, is that Wayfair Studios comes back and Sony, and they said, here's the deal. Although we don't really, I want to make sure I get this writing right. So they acknowledge her concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture, and that they wanted her to feel safe regardless of differing viewpoints, AKA their perspectives differed in many aspects. But we agree. They start filming January 5th. Wrap up February 9th. She says, listen, things got way better on set after they had this big meeting and discussion. It goes into marketing time because the movie's going to come out. And Sony says, hey, we really want to focus on Lily's resilience. We don't want to talk and focus on the domestic violence. Blake says, Sony decided we were going to do this. This was not my choice. This was them. Everybody else on the team agreed, great, this is what we'll do. Even Justin Baldoni agreed that this is how we will market the film.
And, it's funny because if you look at it from the mindset of you don't always talk about the perpetrator, you talk about the victim. This person isn't their crime that has happened to them.
Right.
I kind of see a little bit of actually a pretty progressive conversation around this person is more than the terrible things that has happened to her.
100%. And the whole flower thing was because she's a florist.
Yeah.
Right.
And Lily Bloom.
Lily blooms. So they want to talk about that. Then the stars of the movie, other actors, including Colleen Hoover, who wrote the book, tell Sony and Wayfair, we're not going to be doing promotional work with Justin Baldoni. That is what they claim in this complaint. That is when Justin went, I'm going to change my tune. I am not going to do it this way. I'm going to instead talk about women's trauma and triumph. So she's claiming, as soon as we all said we weren't going to do any marketing with him, but we'll do whatever you want, He changed his tune and then looked like the good guy, and we all looked like a bunch of jerks.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying.
And we ate it up. We thought,
we ate it up.
We thought, I mean, if he went to make her look bad, we went, oh my God, he's championing the actual story.
Yeah. And she has claims in here that say Steve Sorowitz, who is the big benefactor of Wayfair Studios, was willing to spend, quote, $100 million to ruin the lives of Blake Lively and her family. That's what she says. So that is when the smear campaign starts. That's when you start hearing things like Melissa Nathan. She's a crisis management expert. Jennifer Abel, the PR already associated with Wayfair. This guy, Jed Wallace. And we're like, who the hell is this guy? He's a subcontractor who has little minions all over the country that go on Reddit.
Jeds. You can't trust a Jed.
You can't trust them. They go on Reddit. They go on TikTok. They make social media posts. And so it all looks very organic. But that's when all these really bad stories about Blake Lively start coming out. She claims in this complaint that Justin Baldoni figured out Ryan Reynolds had blocked him on Instagram. And he went, we got to get on top of this. And she has receipts within this complaint of him saying, we got to get on top of this. We got to make sure we have a plan in place in case she wants to take us down. That is when we start quietly discrediting Blake. We're like, oh, why would she ever be promoting Blake Brown? Why is she promoting Betty Buzz? Oh, why is she making this so flippant? These old videos with Kirsten Flaw, the journalists come out. It looks really, really bad. Now, this Kirsten Flaw has said that she had nothing to do with this campaign.
Yeah.
However, weirdly enough, she's dropped interviews before when Melissa Nathan, the crisis manager, has had other clients like Drake, Johnny Depp. This woman has dropped other weird interviews with people.
Okay, now, correlation doesn't always mean causation. And I'm saying that only because she might have her finger on the pulse of what the hot name is right now. And my videos can go viral because it would apply to this. I know so many people who work in this industry who'd be like, oh, there's something going on with Taylor Swift. Here's an interview for, I had with this person. That would
100%. And so all of this is all in this complaint, by the way, like how things are looking. They say things like, we're crushing it on Reddit. This was on August 9th. Things like, we've started to see the shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's effort to shift the narrative away from Justin Baldoni and toward Blake Lively, right?
Yeah.
Then there's even part where she says, and socials are really, really ramping up in his favor. She must be furious. It's actually sad because it just shows you that people really want to hate on women. I mean, they acknowledge in these receipts she has that they are killing it, that they are making her look atrocious. And we all thought she looked pretty terrible too.
Yeah, we literally, and that's where you go to show that in Hollywood, you have enough pull, you can make anything the actual narrative. And we eat it up.
Oh, yeah.
Nom, 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 nom.
And at the end of the complaint, she talks about emotional damage. She's like, it has been so awful that it says Blake had days when she couldn't even get out of bed. Both she and her husband had experienced physical distress, whatever that meant to them. Their children have experienced this, etc. And she said, I just solely wanted to speak up for what was right. This all, remember, is the complaint that happened on December 21st. That exact same day, the New York Times article comes out. We can bury anyone inside a Hollywood smear machine.
Wow.
The article has obviously seen that whole complaint.
Yeah.
They have digested it. They've had it for a while because they really go into it.
Yeah, like they were given it early.
They were definitely given this early. And he doesn't look good. That article drops and we all go, everybody loses their mind. That's when all the celebrities start coming out and talking about how great Blake is, right? Like that's when Colleen Hoover says things. That's when other members of the cast are standing up for her. It all happens right around there. As of the next week, Justin Baldoni loses his Voices of Solidarity Award for Allies to Women. He loses his female podcast co-host. He loses his agency. WME drops him. Things look really, really bad for him.
And to be clear, it's also the agency that Blake and Ryan have. And they made it very clear, we find out later, that they said it's either him or us. And they said in a public statement, we went with Blake and Ryan because we've been with Blake and Ryan and they've made us so much money. In so many words, they said, of course we went with Blake and Ryan.
And at this
Ride
point,
and die was the word they used.
Yes.
Yeah. And at this point, really, like, we don't know all of that.
Yeah.
We're just like, wow.
We see this. We saw all this happen and we went, oh, like this is, we're finding so much out.
All around Christmas. We were so busy.
I was like, does not look great for Justin.
It doesn't. And as of January 1st, Blake Lively officially filed the lawsuit in New York City against Justin Baldoni. The same day, he sues the New York Times for $250 million, which is where we're going to pick up in episode 4. This thing is wild, guys.
It is, and I'm really glad that you're really shining a light because there's a lot of things we went, wow, he's explained everything. He hasn't. No, he hasn't. There's a lot there.
There's a lot of things in here that you go, I kind of, if you don't read the whole thing, you don't read the whole thing, and you go, yeah, no,
Good
okay.
work, Kendall. Way to be on the beat.